You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode number 158, we'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch esports, and see what's buzzing in this week's hot community topics. Before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So as you can tell, back with me yet again tonight after last week's Stack Show is my co-host Edinar. And Ed, last week we pushed back the show a day. We had a ton of big announcements that dropped. So it's a little bit of a lighter show this week since a lot of the news dropped Wednesday and Thursday when we were still doing a little bit of show prep. But since then, we had the first homestand weekend for the Overwatch League. The workshop creations from the community have been blowing up, and there's been a lot of stuff happening on that front, which we'll touch up on again. And honestly, we might even be able to do, a segment each week on the workshop, just with how many new creations have been spawning out of that. But outside of that, we got a pretty big week in Overwatch League this week. It's the final week of Stage 2. Most of the playoff picture is already kind of set, with 5 teams having clinched, but there's 3 spots up for grabs. But with all of this going on, I know you had, a little bit of a trip this past week. So how's this past week been treating you?
Well, this past week has been anything short of amazing. So yes, I was gone. I went to Dubuque, Iowa, the Vegas of Iowa, to the casinos down there with a buddy of mine. We gambled and watched the NFL draft Thursday, Friday. Went down Wednesday, Thursday, came back Friday, saw Avengers Endgame. Beyond amazing. Blew my expectations out of the water. And then went to see it again on Sunday. And then we had, Game of Thrones on Sunday night. And then the homestand was Saturday and Sunday. And it was just overall a phenomenal week. I'm glad to be back. I'm disappointed in Ramses and Spider. I had one job for them. And it was make the podcast at least 2 hours.
Yeah, they didn't go off rails enough, despite having 2 people to replace you.
2 people didn't go off rails, and they had plenty of opportunity with all the stuff that happened last week. You had every opportunity to just go crazy, and they both just they blew it. But no, it's been a lot of fun. How has your week been since? We haven't. Well, we did OWL by the numbers yesterday.
I was gonna say.
But how's your week been?
It's been pretty good. It was a busy weekend, so that kind of cut into my Overwatch League viewing. But it was just it was a great weekend. We had Endgame, which is already the top grossing movie of 2019. Because I know it made I think 39 million on Monday, and it made another 36 million yesterday. So it's already outgrossed Captain Marvel. Which is interesting. So
it hit $1.3 billion in 4 days.
It was absolutely ridiculous, because I remember looking at that box office report initially, after the 6 p.m. shows that Deadline posted, and I was like, is that just from the 6 p.m. show? Because it was showing 46 million. I was like, that can't be right.
It's as of Monday at 6 p.m. the cutoff, it was already the 10th highest grossing movie of all time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In 4 days, 10th highest grossing movie of all time.
So
and
for me,
still won't reach number 1.
Yeah, so for me as someone that goes to the movies all the time, I'm really curious to see if it's going to be the first movie to break 3 billion worldwide, as no movie has been able to do that. But they got a long way to go.
They're gonna run into the Aladdin,
right?
And that's gonna be their downfall. Is they're gonna run into the Disney Aladdin. And that's going to dethrone it, and then it's going to just taper off.
Yeah, when we get towards, the end of May, then we start to get some of the bigger movies coming out. But outside of that, I've been playing a ton of Mortal Kombat 11, having a lot of fun with that. I finished in the 8th percentile with the Towers of Time this past week, so doing pretty good there. But, outside of that, I've just been having a ton of fun on the PTR right now. I've never been on the PTR so much in my life compared to what I have been in the past week, just with the workshop being introduced and all of the fun stuff going on there. But Ed, I know you've had a busy night tonight. You were on around the payload tonight, and I told you before you went on, you better win after Bob won, and Ed, I hate to say this to you, but you have become essentially what you hate, because much like the Houston Outlaws, you took an L.
I did take an L. And I have one person to blame for all this, and that is Mel from the Cavalry and OWL Recap. She would go after me, and everything I would say, she would be like, well, I'm going to just rebuke what Ed said. Be like, stop it. Stop it now. I was in the lead until the end. And then the last question did me in. And I lost, but it was a lot of fun. I had a blast. It was great. I hope to go back on there. I'm still gonna push for we can crown the Overwatch League Network champion, mm-hmm. And you can get me, Spider, you, Bob, maybe Ramses and Slambo, but Slambo will be in the Abyss, and Ramses will be in Pitch Black Darkness. So, and we can crown the Overwatch League Network champion once and for all. And it will be me.
Yeah, you say that now. But, just based on, Mel piggybacking off of you and just, refuting you. I'm not so sure about that, Chief. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into this week's news. So, competitive Season 15 has come to an end, and with that, Season 16 is upon us. So, looking back at Season 15, that ended on April 30th, we had the introduction of Baptiste into the competitive play, which was back on April 2nd. We also had, that major balance patch, which looked to shake up the meta quite a bit, and I know for, you and I, we don't really see a whole lot of 3-3, but, we have seen a lot more variations in regards to some of the team comps that we have been seeing in competitive play. But Season 16 basically started pretty much right after Season 15 ended, just like it did in the prior season. And, I feel like at this point, Ed, we didn't get around to doing our alt account placements in Season 15, so we definitely need to put forth the effort to make sure that happens. Because, I've been playing a lot on the workshop and haven't really been playing competitive, and I feel like this is going to be a better test of where my new role placement is going to be, just because I'm going to be a little bit more rusty as I haven't been practicing it. So I want to see how much that's actually going to impact where I end up getting placed on that account, if it's going to be a huge differential compared to what I would normally place on a fresher account.
Yeah, no, I 100% want this to happen. I still don't actually own a golden gun across any of my accounts. And I want to make that happen. It's not about, I don't think golden guns are all that special. I just kind of want one. And I think with me, you, and Spider, I think on our alt accounts, we can make that happen this season. Season 16, we're going to dominate. Dominate silver and gold.
Someone has to do it,
Yeah, if someone has to do it, why not us? Just gotta ask yourself that.
Why not us?
And then blame Canada.
Yeah. See? Yeah, we'll do that a lot. And then everyone is gonna come into the lobby and be like, bro, what the heck? Why are you blaming Canada?
And be like, wait till you play with him. You will too. Exactly. That is what will happen.
Pretty much. But anyways, we do have an update for competitive play that we need to talk about. Now, this one is not going to affect us. I think we're a long ways from ever reaching this point, which is never going to happen. But So Scott Mercer, one of the Overwatch developers, took to the forums to discuss one of the changes coming in Season 16, and this is for the Grandmaster players and above. So that is for the players that are ranked over skill rating 4000. So Grandmaster players are no longer going to be able to queue for competitive matches in a party size larger than 2. Now, a lot of this is just done in effort to have higher quality games and more fun matches for everyone. And, at that level, fair matches is a lot more difficult just due to the fact that, one, you have fewer players there. That does include, top 500, of course. And, being able to queue in large groups when the game is basically built around trying to balance even stacks at that level is a lot harder, especially when you add in the limited pool size as well. Now, the reactions for this have been mostly positive from the players that are excited to remove the advantage of stacking, because there are some players that do that, a lot of which can be done at, really off hours so they can get into, top 500. We see a lot of people trying to abuse that where, they're queuing at, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever godsend time it is. But this is basically the start of what is expected to be several competitive changes here in their near future. Now, of course, looking back, we've had a lot of talk about, what some of these other competitive changes might be, whether it is the introduction of a Force 222, having a role queue, things like that, having separate role SRs rather than just having something that's flat across the board. But, this one seems to be, for the most part, hitting the sweet spot, at least for the higher level of play. But for us, it still leaves us wanting more, okay, when is our stuff actually going to see fruition? Because, right now it kind of seems like they're still holding their cards closer to their chest, but, we have the workshop, which is kind of like this distraction, so hopefully that's going to give Blizzard enough time to sort out whatever other things they have in the works for competitive play, so we can bring not only the casual audience back like they have with the workshop, but also bring the competitive players back, because really the numbers have been hidden pretty hard, whether it is just, the queue times as is, or even the Twitch viewership for the Overwatch streamers as well has definitely seen a downward trend here in the past several months.
Yeah, no, this has to be the start of broader plans. This is just the easier one to implement. This is something that you can implement very simple lines of code. Be like, okay, if you're above this rank, you can't queue with more than 2 people. Plain and simple. It's not as easy as the 222 forced, or the role queue, or the role queue SR 222 locked in, and all that stuff. And, some people are going to say that, yes, we did get a distraction, but that distraction honestly will only last so long before it starts to get a little old. It's the hot new thing right now, the workshop, but in 3-4 months, is it going to be the hot new thing? Probably not. It's going to be fairly similar to Mystery Heroes or arcade mode games, I think. You're not going to see a subgenre of the game, I think, come out from all of this, unless we can implement map changes. If you can change the way the maps look, put in buildings, do stuff like that. Until they can do something like that, I don't think it's gonna stick around super popular for a long time. I would be gladly wrong with it, but this is almost like the workshop seems almost like a band-aid until they fix comp. It's like, hey, we're working on comp, but in the meantime, here's something else that is going to be permanent in the game, and we want you to play around with and have fun with, and do crazy stuff with, and keep your mind off the competitive ranks and the competitive ladder for a little bit. So I think it's all great for the game, and it's added to the longevity of the game. I do like that they capped it at 2. Hopefully it will mean some shorter queues for like a lot of these Twitch streamers where it's like, okay, I'm going to queue for this competitive match and then bring up YouTube and watch videos for 10 minutes while I wait for a game. Like, that's just not fun viewership. Like, but that's what they're kind of forced to do now, is watch YouTube videos or just sit there and talk for 10 minutes. So I don't know. It will be interesting to see what the changes are. We have a full month, I think. May is when we're going to get probably some big competitive changes all across all ranks, because I think they want to get it out before stage 3 so they're effective for the OWL. So hopefully we get some changes, not only to competitive play, but to heroes and whatnot. So,
right, and just speaking of Overwatch League really quick, too, they already kind of had something in place where the Overwatch League players couldn't be in a stack larger than 3. So this is going to affect them as well, since, a lot of those players are going to be all over the top 500 stand-ins. So it's a change not only for, just the competitive ladder players, but also the pro players as well. So, you're not going to run into that Jonek, Carpe, and, Nene, trio stack or any absurd thing like that anymore. So I'm curious to see, how that's going to affect some of the pro players and who they're choosing to duo queue with moving forward. But outside of that, obviously, last week, you unfortunately missed a BlizzCon announcement. So I want to briefly touch back up on BlizzCon because, tickets are going on sale this weekend. That is on Saturday. So I already know, I was scheduled to work, my normal 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, and I told my boss, who was also a Warcraft player, I was like, hey, I'm not trying to buy tickets on my phone, because that's just not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, so I'm just like, either I'm going to come in after tickets go on sale and close, or I'm just going to work a half day. I'll come in on my day off on Friday, work, 6 to 10, and then I'll come in, work a 6 to 10 on Saturday, and, we'll go from there. So that was my plan, so I'm not having to, try to get tickets on my phone. But, I want to get your thoughts on the BlizzCon announcement as a whole, because, they did introduce a new Portal Pass, the premium tickets. We also know that we're not getting a goodie bag in favor of them doing, a special, statue for Warcraft's 25th anniversary. So, you can get the orc or the human, as opposed to, a bunch of, smaller knickknacks that you might just throw on a shelf or something. But, outside of that, I do quickly want to mention, too, Blizzard did confirm that they are not going to be at Gamescom as well, which is coming up. And, those tickets were already on sale a couple of months ago, and Blizzard had always been one of the mainstays at Gamescom, so we're not going to get any sort of announcements then. So does that mean that they're just going to save everything for BlizzCon in hopes that maybe they can balance the scales back to what it was pre, layoffs and all of that, and after the disappointment and the sour taste that people had following this last year's event?
Well, as far as I'll go over BlizzCon first before I touch on the games thing. The new BlizzCon Portal Pass, the mid-level BlizzCon Pass, as it's kind of been. You've got the normal one, you've got the Portal Pass, and then you have the charity dinner one. This one's in the middle, but it does obviously give you different perks, different lines, different security, lounge, where you get to meet with staff, you get preferred parking, which could be huge if you're not staying at one of the hotels right nearby. Preferred parking could be massive. I don't know how the parking situation is at BlizzCon though myself, firsthand knowledge. It's something I've truly thought about doing, but I don't think I'm going to try and purchase the Portal Pass this year. I think it also will make it, I don't want to say easier to get tickets. I think it will just make it less of a, okay, click, 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 click to get your tickets quicker. Who can click the fastest on the fastest internet to get your BlizzCon passes? Because it's gonna be your two separate. Like, okay, are you gonna get regular passes or are you gonna get portal passes? Which one are you gonna do? Which one are you gonna buy? Because it will free up regular BlizzCon passes if you get the portal pass. But I mean, everything about the portal pass, and I've heard a lot of people be negative. Oh, BlizzCon's just trying to get money off of us. They're a company.
Mm-hmm.
Their job is to make money. And they have come out and straight up said BlizzCon is a massive money loss for them. All around, they lose money at BlizzCon. From renting the arenas to the band they pay to play.
Even if it's a county fair band?
Yes. Like, if you want to cut costs, you get rid of that band. Because really, there's no point in it. But, like, it is not, something that they make money on. This is more to, like, cut some of their losses, I think, for actual BlizzCon. Which I have no problem with them doing. I mean, as long as it's not the only option,
right.
I'm good with it. Like, some people love doing this. Like, you didn't hear people complain at the Dallas homestand this past week about, oh my god, I can't believe they're giving VIP ticket. Like, you can buy VIP tickets to get those nice cushy seats in the front. Like, no, that's just another option for people who want to pay more money for the luxuries in life. And I saw one person on Twitter was like, if BlizzCon came out, if Blizzard came out and said, oh, and in the special area you will have there will be a beer vendor that you don't have to wait in line for, I'd buy the pass immediately. Be like, not a bad option. I don't want to wait in line and beer for all that time. So I don't know. The commemorative collectibles that you get instead of the goodies bags, that is disappointing. Just because, one, I don't want to carry around a statue.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I want those little knickknacks. Like, that's half the enjoyment of getting, the goodie bag, is you get all sorts of random fun stuff from every game.
Right. It's not just one.
Hey, because, I mean, Overwatch, you have a massive amount of Overwatch players that don't have any interest in Warcraft whatsoever. And they're going to get that and be like, all right, can I put it on eBay?
Yeah,
that's what they're going to do.
I already told my manager that, hey, let me know which one you want. Like, because I don't play Warcraft anymore. Like, I honestly don't really have the shelf space either. But, like, I know he'd get a lot more enjoyment out of that than I would have a use for, so I'm not going to bother reselling it, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to do that, so that's probably, definitely gonna, drag the prices down, so to speak, but you know what? You can reimburse at least part of your ticket cost if you are gonna go that route.
Exactly. So, either way, everyone's gonna have a great time at BlizzCon, just like they do every other year, despite Diablo Immortals being announced. I mean, we have phones now, so we can play Diablos. As far as the Gamescom thing, it's disappointing, but I don't know if it falls in the range of, if they don't have anything major to announce yet, then why go?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it sucks that they're not going to be there. It sucks for the people that already got tickets to it. Yes, that is horrible. And there's going to be plenty of other cool stuff. But if you don't want to announce Diablo 4 and be like, all right, it will be out mid to end of 2020. They're going to announce the next WoW expansion probably at BlizzCon. They're not going to do anything with Hearthstone. They're not going to do anything with Overwatch. Heroes of the Storm is the redheaded stepchild of Blizzard.
The classic game.
Yes. So really, it comes down to they were either going to announce Diablo 4 there, or the new Warcraft expansion. And they're not ready to do either. And if they're not ready to do either, don't waste the money to go to Gamescom. That's my philosophy on it. Some people might see it as oh my god, they're just trying to cut costs to earn an extra dollar. But like, if there's nothing for them to announce, why do you go? Especially when you have your own convention coming up in November.
Right.
So I don't know. It's not that big of a deal, I don't think. It's just less Blizzard information, which I think we all kind of crave and and want.
Yeah, I think we're just so accustomed to getting like Warcraft announcements during this convention in particular, just because that seems to be kind of like the mainstay focus for Gamescom. Because that was always kind of like the BlizzCon before BlizzCon.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I may be losing my mind, but didn't Zoe introduce a World of Warcraft expansion at Gamescom a few years back? I swear it was her that introduced it. If it wasn't her, it was somebody who looks exactly like her.
I honestly don't know. I know she's definitely been there for Gamescom. Because I remember her doing interviews and stuff. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was her with Ian Hassikosis.
Yeah, because I remember hearing her. She sounds just like, and she sounds and looks just like Tracer. And then I'm like, oh, she's in the Overwatch League now. I remember her. So, yeah, it will be fun. But, I mean, I'm just beyond excited for BlizzCon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's going to be my first BlizzCon ever this year. Working on getting hotels and all that fun stuff right now. So I cannot wait for BlizzCon this year.
Absolutely, and I'm sure I'll be hanging out in the Overwatch arena pretty much the majority of the time, like I do every year.
See, and that's the thing, is like, you probably do that, and I'm going to spend a large chunk of my time there, but I've never explored BlizzCon.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to explore BlizzCon. I think you need to do that at least once.
Yeah, I feel like in your case, you at least need to pop in for, like, the finals.
Yeah, the finals. But I want to check out, I'm a big Hearthstone fan,
right,
and, all that stuff. So I cannot wait, and I'm preparing to drop a pretty penny on all the memorabilia that I can get my hands on.
Absolutely. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and jump into our hot community topics for this week. So obviously we are, fresh off the heels of the Overwatch League Dallas homestand weekend. And, probably not the best start. We had a little bit of a blackout during the homestand weekend, which was like, 12 minutes into, like, the Eternal and Spitfire series. So basically, like, there was just a rolling blackout in the regional area in Allen, Texas, and it caused a disruption of the broadcast, which lasted about 45 minutes. And of course, there was backup power that was restored a few minutes later, so the arena wasn't in pure darkness. They did have backup lights for the fans in the arena, but when I was at work and I heard about this, I was like, what timing, right? Like, your first travel week, something happens that's just completely out of your control, and then of course you're always gonna have people there to meme like, lol, NA production, like, of course, this is Texas, so it's hot as shit, and of course, that deals some issues at times, but I couldn't help but laugh so hard when this happened, because I was like, man, Houston's really trying to get out of this, aren't they? But the thing that really brought it home, though, was the fact that I remember the LA Valiant had tweeted earlier in the week about how, like, I can't remember who they directed it at, but like, hey, so-and-so, like, you don't need to cause, like, a blackout or something like that to avoid playing them, essentially. And then, like, days later, this happened, so, like, thanks a lot, LA Valiant, that was totally on you.
Yeah, way to go. I blame Custa for all of this. No, like, this is one of those things, it's worst timing at the worst possible moment. Like, it was, it's, and a lot of this is, I don't think we know exactly why the power went out. Like, if it was a rolling blackout or if there was, like, an accident or that caused it. I don't know. Have they said what that was?
I have not seen any update on it.
But I mean, here's another thing: rolling blackouts happen in heat all the time. What's one thing you absolutely certainly know about Texas? It is hot as shit in Texas.
Right.
Like, it is one of those things where this is probably pretty normal in that state, is to have rolling blackouts due to heat. Now, granted, it's probably the wrong time of year, but I mean, who really knows? It's unfortunate. Everyone kind of made a joke of it, but at this point, nobody's blaming Blizzard for this. Right now, it's just a running joke. And they recovered from it quite well, actually. So there was really no downtime between when the power came on and when they were just back into it. They obviously just had to boot everything up, and everything was going fine. So yeah, it was unfortunate, but they handled it pretty well.
Yeah, I did find the tweet, by the way, that the Valiant sent, and they said, "Hey, Dallas Fuel, if you're too scared to play us, you don't have to trigger a blackout. You can forfeit gracefully." And, sure enough, we all saw what happened. Fuel just stomped them. Oh, man. But, it was a good recovery, but, just what are the odds, It was just an unfortunate situation, but they made the most out of it, and thankfully, after that point, there were really no hiccups in the broadcast, which, I mean, honestly, with the way, some of the production has been this season, I would honestly say, the travel weekend actually was an improvement in the overall viewing experience. Which is kind of a weird thing to say, just because of how rushed some of the things have been with some of the scheduling that they have done so far this season. So I'm curious to see if the next homestand weekend, which is Atlanta, is gonna have a similar environment, just due to the fact that they're not gonna have essentially two home crowds. So I don't know how exactly that's going to work, because that definitely did heighten the overall experience for the Dallas homestand weekend. Having the Dallas fans and the Houston fans there.
I actually made that point around the payload, and I got roasted for that. Because honestly, with this, they put their best foot forward in the Dallas-Houston homestand. And yes, it's a Dallas homestand, but it's a Dallas-Houston homestand. It's the Battle of Texas. That is what is being built up. Battle of Texas. You have one home team and one home team B. Really. Not many places are going to be able to do that. You have LA, which we've seen all the time. You probably have New York and Boston. And then...
Which Philly can be thrown in there too, since they're all
can be
tri-state thrown in primarily.
There. But it's New York versus Boston is more well known.
It's the primary, yeah.
Is the primary. And then maybe you can throw in London and Paris, but not so much. But for Atlanta, who are they gonna get to be hey, let's bring in our big rival that is close by, the Justice, and then be okay, never mind. No, it's gonna be 95% Atlanta Reign fans, or people cheering for the Atlanta Reign fans, and it's not going to be the same atmosphere that they had in Dallas, because in Dallas, it was, from some accounts 70-30, 70% Dallas, 30% Houston, and you're not going to get that in other areas outside of, like we said, the New York, maybe Paris, and the LA, even San Francisco. Probably not going to be like that.
Yeah, and in this case too, with the Houston Dallas, they at least had 3 matches, so to speak, since they did have the Battle for Texas, but they also had their other games that week, as opposed to in Atlanta's case when they're just going to have their 2 matches. So there's less of investment overall over the course of the 2 days.
So it's and after this year, we're not going to really have home stands like this. It's not going to be hey, this is a special thing. Well, homestands are going to be an every week around the globe type of thing. You're not going to have these special homestand events with fireworks going off and all this crazy stuff happening. It's not going to be the same. they went all in with the Dallas Houston one, and then I think it's going to be a little bit of a letdown if people expect the same outcome for everyone after this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So outside of this, obviously one of the hot talking points has been the introduction of the workshop. We've seen a lot of new, game modes and game mechanics starting to spawn. And I know last week I posted, a nice spreadsheet that has a lot of the import codes in our show notes, which again I'll link in this week's show notes. And maybe we'll put something in the Discord for like workshop specific stuff where people can post stuff. But it's been really interesting to see how quickly the community has kind of like latched onto this project and really started to improve certain aspects, whether it is, kind of like working the 2-2-2 and evolving that, improving like a battle royale experience. But we've had a ton of new game modes that have been popping up. So here's just a couple of them that have stood out to me. We have one where Bastions are able to fire Torbjorns. That's an interesting one.
Vice versa now too. Did you see that?
Yes, I did see
where
that.
Instead of Torbjorn's he throws out Bastion.
It's fantastic. There's also a spin-off of Deathmatch where they took a Marvel spin with Infinity War, so you have the Infinity Stones. So, like, whenever you pick up an Infinity Stone, you gain certain power-ups. So whenever you control them, you're basically buffed. There's an Overwatch, like, RPG experience where you can, like, level up to improve different stats. We also have, like, a MOBA game for Overwatch in the workshop, which is, kind of similar, where, you can, like, increase your health or your speed, things like that. And, there's also, like, turrets or towers, so to speak, that you had to deal with just like in other MOBAs. But no, like, we haven't seen like any sort of like minion spawns yet. So I don't know if that's going to be something that's going to be in the wheelhouse, but I would assume like that is definitely going to be something that they're going to be looking at incorporated into that specific game mode. I know Spider linked me to like a Space Invaders game that someone had made, which looked pretty cool. There's also the Diva Space Battle, which I know is posted on the Elu Hell Discord, which looked pretty trippy. But there's so much stuff going on. And we've even seen Blizzard looking at some of like the more popular game modes that have been popping up on the workshop and then added them as a preset. I know they added the gun game as one of the presets to the workshop now as well. The people can look to build and expand on that. I haven't checked since that was put in a workshop, so I don't know if there's any other presets that have been added since then. But I have to say, like, initially, like, my knee-jerk reaction wasn't too positive on this, but I've been having an absolute blast just playing on the PTR. And, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I have not spent this much time on the PTR ever. So, like, I would say at this point, collectively, I've spent more time on the PTR than I have since the game launched, like, in its entirety at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spent a crazy amount of time on PTR, but I think a lot of this is, like, yeah, you have the fun and cheeky game modes, like Power Stones, or the Bastion fires Torbjorn, and, stuff like that. But you actually get phenomenal game mechanics put into this. The one that has stuck out into my mind since day one, and it's something that I think should be in every kind of game like this, and every Battle Royale, is the ping system.
Right.
From Apex Legends. And somebody has done that. And this is something that I think Blizzard can see, if this has become super popular, they could implement that into the actual game. Like, into competitive. And be like, okay, everyone loves this ping system. Why not implement it into competitive? It's not hurting the game at all. It's just adding some, adding a different aspect of, awareness around the game. So, you're going to get a lot of stuff like that out of this. But again, it's also super fun. I saw a Super Smash Brothers
Yeah, I've been playing
mode.
that one.
I've seen Hammond Racing. The floor is lava. That's another one with Lucio,
Mhm.
where you have to ride around the map, and if you touch the ground, you burst into flames. These are all cheeky and fun. Um, I want to see some of the more popular ones created by fans implemented into like All Star Weekend. That would be fun. Like instead of hey, let's do arcade mode or
Right.
something like that, introduce gun game into the All Star Weekend and make the pros play that.
Right, but no, we have 3 Hanzo, 3 Genji, and 6 support, 1 hero limit.
Yeah, or oh god, imagine Hammond Racing
Hmm.
with a man not banned from playing. But like a lot of these fun games, I think would go well to. It would just bring more exposure to it because the last thing you want is this to be forgotten about 6 months down the road. Kind of like, hey, do you guys remember that group finders in the game?
Right.
Because nobody uses it anymore, ever. So like you don't want it to fall in that level. So I'm also waiting for them to do map editor. I think it's only a matter of time before they do that, but this is a great start and it's a lot of fun. I'm not smart enough to make any of
No, me neither.
it. Like I'll enjoy what you guys do.
Hmm.
I will not be able to do it myself. Like I mean this takes me back to StarCraft. Like back in StarCraft when you were able to do the mod games, that's all it
Hmm.
was. There was no like you didn't play multiplayer. Like straight up from in the game multiplayer. No, you played different mod versions of it. And that's what this is. And hopefully it can get to that. That'd be a lot of cool because it adds a lot of longevity to the game. And that's what this game needs right now. It needs longevity. So,
Absolutely. So, like, for me with this, too, like, I just want to see, one, what's going to be incorporated into actual game modes. Two, how much of this is going to be mechanic-based or just quality of life improvements. But, I have to say, like, right now, I've just been blown away by the amount of community participation. I knew it would be big, but, like, I feel like at this point, it's definitely far exceeded my expectations. And like in regards to a map editor, just seeing the amount of support that's already come into the workshop, I feel like Blizzard is going to be more open to the idea moving forward, just seeing how quickly people have been latching onto this. But moving into the competitive talk, we do have the contenders playoffs that are going on. I know NA has been wrapping up today. I know Fusion Uni was leading over Flanders Legion. We had Team Envy coming out on top against Atlanta Academy. But what's been interesting is, with all this going on, something kind of like that didn't go notice that much was with Contenders South America and their playoffs. They actually were broadcasting on the Brazilian ESPN outlets, which I thought was pretty damn cool. So, of course, Contenders playoffs are in full swing. And South America is wrapping up on Monday evening when Low Key Esports, which was basically like the combination of Brazil Gaming House and oh crap, what was the other team? Whoever beat them last year, and they formed like a super team basically. But they are taking on Fury. Now, quick sidetrack. When I looked at this, I was like, "What? Fury?" Like, 'cause that was that Australian team that's competed in South America that was always kind of like low mid tier. I was like, that can't be right. Sure enough, they're in the grand final. So like that definitely took me by surprise. But we have these airing on the Brazilian ESPN channel. I know they're doing a rerun on ESPN Extra. And what's cool about this is, this is an area that probably doesn't get as much exposure, so for them to be on such a major outlet is an absolute huge win for that scene. Now, of course, with the Tier 2 scene and contenders. We have the additional LAN events that are coming up. We have the Atlantic and the Pacific Showdown. We have the Gauntlet event, which is, towards the end of the year. But do you feel like this is a sign that the bigger events, at least in that tier, are going to be more heavily invested in the broadcast aspect, where, we're going to be seeing more things popping up on these major outlets? Or, is this just something that is going to be few and far between at this point?
I think it's going to be more few and far, just because of, if you look at the regions where, say, ESPN isn't really big in, like, China or Korea. I don't even know if they're even there at all. Whereas ESPN Brazil or ESPN over in Europe, or they may have it in Australia, I don't know. And NA, they're not focal points. Like, it's not good. Contenders is not going to be on ESPN2 or ESPN Plus, because honestly, it's not big enough to warrant it in NA, and probably EU as well. You need to get these smaller markets of Brazil or Australia or stuff like that, where you can find a niche market, niche spot for these type of esports events. If you look in Brazil, like, at the number of professional sports down there, it doesn't really match up to what, like, EU and NA have. Like, they don't have the professional football leagues, they don't have professional soccer leagues, baseball leagues, hockey leagues, golf, college football, college basketball, tennis, like all these different professional sports that are all also on ESPN. They probably have half that down there as far as professional sports. So you are getting contenders there. I'm sure if Brazil had a OWL team, which they should have, they would probably be on ESPN. Every one of their matches would probably be on ESPN down there, because they can push it there without it bumping a more popular sport out, because there's not that many more popular sports down there. Mm-hmm. So, but this is actually super cool that it's on there, and it's a step in the right direction. Contenders maybe could be put on ESPN Plus, because it's not like it's competing for a lot on ESPN Plus, because you basically go on the website and there's 40 different things that are live at that moment, and you can watch ESPN contenders on ESPN Plus. It's just like going on Twitch. There's thousands upon thousands of live streamers, and one of those could be contenders and just on ESPN. So it's all on what they have the contract for, and what Disney wants to do, because Disney runs the world. Mm-hmm. Like, Disney and Apple run everything.
Pretty much, yeah. But what was different about this, though, too, is just the fact that it wasn't just like the grand finals. It was the entirety of the playoffs, which is also a different take, at least in regards to a TV broadcast, which was pretty cool. But outside of that, looking at the Overwatch League, we do have a little bit of movement. We have the LA Valiant parting ways with one of their assistant coaches, that being Donzu, who is the second departure from this team's coaching staff this season. So, looking back, Donzu had joined the Valiant during the offseason alongside Pekin 10. And at the time, they were joining the coaching staff to work under the team's head coach, who at the time was Moon. Obviously, Moon is no longer with the team after that rough Stage 1 where they didn't take a single game. Pekin 10 has been serving as the team's interim head coach ever since then. And, Stage 2, we've seen a little bit of improvements. They have won a game. Well, 2 games, actually, at this point. They are 2-4. But the Valiant are really in a rough spot right now. They're currently ranked 18th in the league with a 2-11 season record. So, any chance of a playoff run at the end of the season is still within reach, but it's a very hard climb at this point, given where they are currently at. But the Valiant, they'll look to close out their Stage 2 on Saturday this weekend against the Chengdu Hunters, which they're not going to be favored in that series. But we have seen the Valiant starting to, experiment a little bit more. Maybe more so on the flex support role. We have seen Kariv coming in at times for Izayaki. And I know in that Dynasty series, when the Valiant took them to 5 games, when Kariv came in, he was just right-clicking Ryo Jae-hon and getting some key picks to open up fights to really bring that series to him at 5. So it's been interesting to see these swaps coming in regards to that role. But, the Valiant are making moves as opposed to maybe some other struggling teams out there. But with the mid-season break coming up, are the Valiant going to be buyers, or are they going to try to, maybe look for a trade? Whether it is, swapping someone out of their team in exchange for someone else? What do you think the picture is going to be going into Stage 3 for this team?
All right. Well, so this is reading way too much into things. But when you think of it, they got rid of Dongsu, and he was the only Korean coach they had. They have no Korean coaches left on the team. You have Packing, Schwartz, Stoop, Doug, T-Bubbles, all American, an assistant coach, Promise, who's German. And you're looking at the team. Fate was already kind of considered on the bubble, almost. I think this sounds like they're going to keep they were always in the, are they going to go full Korean, or are they going to go more for an NA English-speaking roster? And I think this move has kind of swayed them to let's go more towards an English-speaking roster. Except not get rid of Izayaki. But I could definitely see them getting rid of Fate, Kariv, Bunny, and Kuki. Bringing in new people all the way across the board for that, or making trades, or doing something like that. This team is in need of an old, because they have 3 really good core players in Agilities, Space, and Izayaki. And then you have a good leader on the team in Custa. I think they're going to make some pretty drastic changes between Stage 2 and 3. And this was just the first start, because if you don't have anyone who can communicate with the Korean players from the coaching staff, you're in trouble. Without having to go through your translator every single time, which will get old real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know the status of Fate, Bunny, and Kuki and Izayaki's, how well they speak English, and how well they can communicate with the rest of the team. But I think they are primed for going one way or the other. And I think it's going to go more towards an NA roster at this point. So who knows? They've quietly, the Valiant have been one of the biggest movers of players throughout the past, season 1 and this one. I mean, if you look at some of the players they've gotten rid of, and you're looking at Soon, Finzi, Numblock, Verbo, Silkva, Grim Reality, Envy, Unco, all players that have left the LA Valiant. The number of coaches that have left the LA Valiant is probably the same length. So the Valiant have had a lot of turnover and turmoil, and I think they're looking to change that when it comes to Stage 3, because they're starting to finally kind of turn that corner. They just need that final pushover, and I think Fate is going to be the one that's going to suffer the axe the quickest.
So, just to tie this together, what you're saying is, with the Valiant, there's been a lot of in and out.
Yes. There's been a lot of in and out.
Alright, well, moving on, speaking of a little bit of...
I set that one up for you so good, and I didn't even read.
Speaking of movements, we gotta take a look at the London Spitfire, who have made a roster signing of their own. They've gone out and signed Quatermain. And, you know, we've seen the Spitfire really starting to climb the ranks this stage. They have clinched a playoff spot for Stage 2, which is pretty nice. And they've brought some backup to their support line. Well, some additional backup. In this case, it's for their main support. So Quatermain has been a player from like the early Apex days when he played for Africa Freaks Red. He's also played with Birdring and Bedosian back when Cloud9 Kondu was basically like a merchant between Cloud9 and Kondu Panthera. But he last played for Samsung Morningstar's Black, and he finished that tenure back in like July of 2018. But really, you know, this is backup, help for Nuss, who is the team's other main support. So, you know, it might be a similar situation with Krillin, where, like, maybe Quatermain is gonna come in, play a garbage map, you know, a map that's not really gonna mean as much, you know, kind of like the Reaper effect for LA Gladiators, or, Titans are going through this as well. But, you know, we get the return of the Rap God from Apex, which is a nice touch, and if no one's seen that video, I highly recommend you go check that out, because it's probably going to be like the first thing linked on competitive Overwatch when it comes to Quatermain. But you know, this is a good sign, and this is someone that has been around the scene for quite some time. Someone that's been kind of like linked to the Overwatch League since its inception, but was never picked up. I think initially he was rumored to be joining the Shock back in Season 1, but this has been someone that a lot of people have looked up to specifically on this role. I know he had at one point like replaced Waka Waka, which was another notorious like Korean Lucio player that's been very well respected. So I'm happy to see him getting his due. And at the end of the day, you know, maybe this will relieve a little bit of pressure off of Nuss. That way, Nuss isn't having to play every single map in every single series. So I'm curious to see if we're ever going to see Quatermain and Krillin at the same time, or if it's just going to be one's in and one is out in these map 4 situations.
Yeah, I mean, this is purely a depth pickup. He's not going to replace him. I don't ever think that. He has a lot of history like him, and he's played with Birdring and Bedosian before, so he's got some synergy, and this was more probably we needed another backup main support in case anything happens to Nuss. And you're starting to see that more and more with Overwatch League, is realizing you need backups for each one of the support positions, because you saw what happened with the Fusion. When, you know, Elk had to come in, who is a main support and a very good main support, but had to come in and play, you know, Lucio, and they just got rolled. Just straight up rolled. I think it's smart of them to do this. They get someone who is not a star, who's not going to come in and try and push for playing time, but is one of those quality backups that you can count on in a pinch that you need. You could maybe see him and Krillin coming together, but here's the thing about the Overwatch League is it's not built for that to ever happen.
Right.
Because map differential means so much. It's why you didn't see in the Texas homestand, in the Dallas game, you didn't see Mickey, Taimu, Harry Hook, or anyone like that, because even if they would have gone up 3-0, they probably wouldn't have brought them in, because map differentials mean so much. The only way you're seeing Quatermain, and I'm gonna call him Quatermain.
I mean, that is one of his other aliases.
Yeah, like just call him Quatermain. Just do that, and you're never gonna see him and Krillin in the same lineup unless something happens to Nuss and Bedosian. Like, you know, they're both running down the hall, run into each other, and they both get concussions. Then you're gonna see Quatermain and Krillin in the same lineup. That is how it's gonna go down. But this was overall a really good pickup for the Spitfire. I kind of compare it to in like professional football is if you have a good quarterback, but then you go out and you get an experienced veteran quarterback to back them up in case anything happens to your quarterback. This is how I see that. They're not going to take you to the championship, but they're not going to make you lose the championship as well.
Right.
So, overall, very good. Nice to see it, in the middle of the season, which you don't, middle of the stage, which you don't see that often. So, it was nice.
So outside of that, with the Overwatch League, we also have a new sponsor joining the Overwatch League. And this is a beer sponsor for the Overwatch League. So Overwatch League was promoting Bud Light as its title sponsor during the Dallas homestand. And this deal is going to include live activation at some key events and sponsor broadcasts on ABC, ESPN2 in the coming months ahead. So this is going to include, like, the Atlanta homestand. I know it's also going to be tied into the LA Rivalry Weekend, which is coming up in August, as well as the 2019 Overwatch League Grand Finals. But, looking back during, like, the Coca-Cola deal, like, they specifically worded it as, like, the Overwatch League non-alcoholic sponsor. And we were like, okay, like, there's still a chance. And sure enough, same season, it did happen. So, while not going to be my first choice, because I'm not a huge beer drinker, I was just happy to see it just because, like, alcohol sponsors in, sports is such a mainstay. I mean, you're used to seeing it, whether it's baseball, football, hockey, MMA have it as well. So, you did see a lot of, like, interaction with Bud Light at the homestand weekend. They had their sponsored bars. They had the Bud Light night as well. So I'm really curious to see how this is going to evolve over time. But, if you're at, like, an Overwatch League event, chances are, if they are selling beer, it's going to be Bud Light.
Yeah. No, you're talking to someone. Major League Baseball team's stadium is called Miller Park.
Mm-hmm.
Our little stadium is named after beer. But no, this is great. I mean, yeah, we knew something was coming from the beer side of it. Whether it was going to be Miller, Coors, or Bud, we didn't know. They could have probably gone either way. It's just Bud probably paid them more. But it's nice to see it out there. It also is a little weird. Like, I know you guys brought this up on Heroes Never Die last week, I believe, without me, about like maybe getting some of the players in a commercial. Or no, that was on Monday on Overwatch League Network that you and Spider were talking about it. And I'm just like, no, because 90% of all the players can't legally drink.
Well, obviously you wouldn't have an underage person in it.
But you know what I mean? Like, this is more geared to fans, and it's going to be nice. So it'll be interesting to see, honestly, BlizzCon this year, if it's going to be only Bud Light, Bud Anheuser-Busch beer, or that they serve there. Because, like, I know they're very picky about all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a perfect example is, like I said, the Milwaukee Brewers are called play in Miller Park. Well, when they were built, they had the All-Star game, like the first year that they were open. And Anheuser-Busch is the main sponsor of baseball. But because Miller Park, it was Miller Park and the Brewers were sponsored by Miller, no Budweiser products could be sold inside the stadium. Like, it's just it's these kind of intricacies that you really have to think. Like, if you would go to the Dallas homestand, I would like to know if Miller Lite was available or something like that, or if Budweiser just is like, nope, you can't sell anything but Anheuser-Busch products in the stadium at all, period. And that kind of stuff do wonders, especially at like the Blizzard Arena or BlizzCon or something like that. So it will be interesting to see what it comes. But I'm glad they finally found You also pointed out on Monday on Overwatch League Network that you would prefer it to have been a whiskey sponsor.
Hard liquor, yes.
I 100% back.
Well,
For the whiskey sponsor.
Yeah, because I remember when the Storm Rising event came out, there was the Rumbatico rum. I was like, oh, here we go, branded Overwatch liquor.
What sounds better? Bud Light presents Dallas Fuel versus Houston Outlaws, or Jack Daniels presents
right.
Dallas Fuel versus the Houston Outlaws. I'm going with the Jack Daniels.
As would I in this case. But we are coming off of the homestand weekend, the first one for the Overwatch leagues. That was stage 2, week 4. We had 2 days of action. A lot of 4-0s this homestand, which was interesting. But I know looking back at the prior week, we were looking at the Dynasty schedule. They were facing the Outlaws, they were facing a Valiant, and we were kind of hesitant this week because when you look at that, those are matches that in the past Dynasty kind of dropped the ball in, and that's kind of the matches that would really deter them from actually making the stage playoffs. But luckily, the Dynasty came out that week with a 2-0 record. They're still in the playoff hunt. Which, of course, they have a couple of big matches coming up this week, which we'll talk about here in just a few moments. But as I mentioned earlier, the Valiant did push the Dynasty to a Map 5, which was, a little bit unexpected. But I was just happy to see them not split and get a 1-1, because I knew, just based on the fact that, we do face the Titans again in this upcoming week, that had they dropped one of these trap games, that basically would have nailed the coffin shut in regards to their stage 2 playoffs hope. So I was happy to see that. But outside of that, I have to say, the Dallas Fuel Houston Outlaws match was pretty entertaining. Of course, you had the whole rivalry going on. The crowd was really getting into it. Whether or not the crowd noise was amped up on the broadcast or not, that's up for interpretation. But you can definitely say the atmosphere was definitely there whenever Dallas or Houston was playing, or whether both of them were playing in the same match. But looking back, Ed, what were your thoughts on just how the weekend went out? What were some of your takeaways that you had from the homestand?
I think the Overwatch League production knocked it out of the park. Obviously, they had the power out. Nothing they can do about that. But they did what they needed to do, and that was focus on the crowd reactions and the crowd participation and make this seem like a bigger deal than it might have actually been. I truly believe they probably upped some of the volume of the cheers and the chants during the matches to get people watching on Twitch and watching at home more hyped up. Because let's be honest, out of the 8 matches, 6 of them were crap. All of Saturday was just horrible. You had 3 4-0 matches Saturday. That's a bad lineup to have. And Sunday was better, but you still had the 2 3-1s. Then you had the 2 good matches between the Spark and Eternal and Dynasty Valiant. It was just one of those things, but the production team made it feel and seem like the crowd was going crazy and intense for every single match, whether they were losing 4-0 or up 4-0. So the production company passed their first initial test. This is the first time they've actually had to really travel as a unit and see how things work. So A+ work, Overwatch League, for the production value this weekend. Gameplay struggled. It was a struggle. You saw a lot of bad maps. Outlaws, yes, they took a map off the Fuel. Dallas Fuel made a ridiculous amount of stupid mistakes. Outlaws also were playing above what they probably should have because they were being hyped up by the crowd. But otherwise, Houston just looked horrible. the entire time. I mean, they lost their games a total of 7-1. That's bad. Valiant looked horrible against the Fuel, but took Dynasty to game 5. Someone explain that to me.
Those Jahan picks, man.
Oh.
That's really what it was.
And then, I honestly, the best team if you were to pick one team to watch this entire week, the Hanzo Spark.
Mm-hmm.
They went 3-1 against the Chengdu Hunters, which was a decent matchup, and then they went 3-2 against Paris, which was a very good matchup. So I would say, you saw some highs and some lows, more lows than highs when it comes to this weekend. You just got to see some ridiculous gameplay, like Fury from the Spitfire eats grabs for a living at this point. I think he ate like 4 more this week. Like it was just insane. The Outlaws just don't know what to do with themselves. I went back and looked. In the game against Dallas, they played 3 different lineups. Mm-hmm. 3 of the 4 maps. They had 3 completely different lineups.
At least they were trying different things, which was nice to see. And we finally did get to see like the old school like Widowmaker Junkrat defense on Anubis, which is something that I've been wanting to see for quite some time. Unfortunately, they didn't get the full hold. Like if that would have worked and they got the full hold, that definitely would have been the best look that we had seen from them. But I was just happy to see them try new things. But the issues with that team are just so glaring, and I've gone at great length discussing like the problems that they've had with Brigitte play, Diva play. Really, at times, just not wanting to run Zarya at all. When they're doing their Sombra comps, which is another like really odd thing that no other team is doing because, well, no other team is Houston, and they know that Zarya is your main damage dealer. It's been an interesting week.
We're gonna run goats, but you know what? Just to surprise people, we're gonna take out the only person that does damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, complete mind twist here. We're gonna do no damage, but we can sustain, but we can't kill you at all either. So we're going for the ultimate tie here. It was just ugly. Houston is worst team in the league. I'm sorry. They're the worst team in the league. Like, the Justice are bad, but they're brand new and they're working things out. The Outlaws have been around the same team, really, outside of Dante being added. The same team from week 1, season 1. And they're just trash right now. Like, they're horrible. Bottom of the barrel. They are Shanghai Dragons from season 1 at this point.
I mean, two map wins is definitely rough. But, I'm looking at Twitch chat, and Iceham Jello mentioned Hunter Speed in London was an upset to me. Absolutely. What a crazy circumstance. I know at the start of the stage, we were, kind of, looking at the strength of schedule, and when you would look at it, the opponent win percentage that, the Hunters were going up against was, 53%, which was by far the weakest strength of schedule. So, they had the easiest ride to get into the stage playoffs. Now, that being said, Chengdu Hunters, at the end of the day, are only 3-3 so far in this stage. They have a +2 map differential, and that upset win puts them in a position where they can make the stage playoffs now, as opposed to had they lost, they definitely would have been out of the running at that point, even when you're looking at an 8th seed. So that was definitely one that I know a lot of people, at least with pick'ems, got wrong. Probably one of the few, maybe like the Houston-Dallas one might have been another one, just because people would just look at the past history and they'd be like, oh, Houston has had Dallas's number. And, of course, Dallas picked up their first win against the Houston Outlaws in Texas, nonetheless, so couldn't have picked a better spot for that. But yeah, absolutely, that was definitely one of the upsets. And really, like, outside of that, like, I'd say, like, the overall quality of games was not to the normal standard. Part of that was just maybe just due to some of the matches that we had. But it's been interesting to see, like, the spark kind of, like, evolve over this stage. But, like, it's very hard for me to feel confident in this team right now, at least this stage, when, yes, they have a 4-2 record, but their map differential sucks. They have a -3 map differential, which is definitely going to come into play. So, like, I hate to say it, but, like, if the Spark win, that guarantees them a playoff spot, because they'd be 5-2 at that point. But if they lose, they are absolutely screwed.
Yep, they are. That is why, like, this upcoming, the matchup they have with the Seoul Dynasty, it's fitting. It's the last match of the week, this week, because it's probably, like, it's very likely that it's going to come down to winner of that match gets into the playoffs.
Right.
Because, like you said, if Hanzo does not win, they're out. They're flat out with a negative map differential, and the only way they make it in and still lose means Seoul loses, Shanghai loses, Chengdu loses, Fusion loses.
Well, Fusion don't have a good shot.
No, but, like, if they went to 4-3, or 4-3, and the Spark went to 4-3, Fusion would get in over Spark, because Fusion have a positive map differential, and the Spark don't. Like, Spark, the only way they make the playoffs is if they win against Seoul Dynasty.
Right.
It's the only way that they can make it in. So it's going to be a massive game for Spark versus Dynasty this upcoming week.
Absolutely. So, looking at Stage 2, Week 5, the playoff picture has taken shape. We do know we have some teams that are eliminated. Some of the teams that have been struggling, Florida Mayhem, Houston Outlaws, Washington Justice are also out of the run, and same with the Guangzhou Charge, who, Slambo and I had such high expectations for the Charge this stage, and they kind of just fell flat on their face. But when we look at the teams that have clinched their playoff spot, we do have 5 spots already secured. So that includes the LA Gladiators, the San Francisco Shock, who have yet to drop a map so far this stage. You have the Vancouver Titans, also undefeated in Overwatch League history. You have the New York Excelsior, and the London Spitfire. So all the Korean teams are in. Well, I guess I can't really say that because of Toronto now. So that's technically incorrect. The mainstay Korean teams are all in. So looking at the playoff picture, when we're looking at the teams that are going to be competing for those final 3 spots, we have the Dallas Fuel, who are currently 4-2. They have a +3 map differential. We have the Hangzhou Spark, who are also 4-2 with a -3 map differential. Dynasty are 3-2. They have a +6 map differential, which is really key because they are 4 maps above, or 3-4 maps above everyone else, minimum. You have the Shanghai Dragons, who are 3-2 with a +2 map differential. Same with the Chengdu Hunters, but they are 3-3. And then last but not least, we have the Philadelphia Fusion, who are 3-3 but have a +1 map differential. Now, Ed, when we look at, some of the matches this week, Fuel, they face the Mayhem for their final game, which is a very winnable game. Chances are, Fuel are definitely to win that. They'll finish 5-2. That will secure their spot. Hangzhou Spark, they face the Dynasty. So even if they win, chances are, like, they might not even finish with a positive map differential. They might finish with a 0 in this case. If it's a close series. But even if it's a blowout or like a 4-0, the best they can do is a +1 map differential, which might not even be enough. Now, when you look at the Dynasty, they have 2 matches this week. They face the Titans first, and they close out their stage against the Spark. But that +6 map differential is absolutely crucial. Now, if they play the Titans close, that is going to be a massive win for them and their playoff hopes. But at the end of the day, they're still going to have to beat the Spark. Because chances are they're not going to be able to beat the Titans, which will be their second loss to the Titans. And, it's very important that they went 2-0 this last week, just knowing that, chances are 2 of their 3 losses that were going to happen at this stage were going to be against Vancouver, who honestly is probably going to finish, undefeated again this stage. But when we're looking at the playoff picture at the end of the day, who do you feel like are going to be locking down that 6th, 7th, and 8th seed going into the playoffs?
All right. Yeah, I think Dallas is gonna. I think that's kind of a given. All they have to do is beat the Florida. Not that hard. Seoul Dynasty, they just have to go 1-1. If they go 1-1, they clinch. With their map differential. I'm not saying 100% they clinch if they go 1-1, but they have a 4-map differential, 4-map lead on Shanghai and 2. So they would have to lose 4-0 to the Vancouver Titans and then also go to 3-1 or 3-2 versus the Hangzhou Spark for them to not get in. Shanghai, I don't think will get in because they don't have the best matchups this week.
No.
They're playing the Justice. Yes, they'll probably win that. But then they play the San Francisco Shock. I don't think they're going to do enough to catch the Seoul Dynasty in that regards. So I think they're going to go 1-1 with this one and probably have, honestly, I can see them going 4-0 against the Justice and then getting 4-0'd by the Shock, which basically means that they're still at their +2 map differential. So if I was a betting man, which I am, I would say the Dallas Fuel would come in 6, Seoul Dynasty 7, and then I'm going to go with the Chengdu Hunters at the number 8 spot.
Right.
Just because they're playing the Valiant, and I think they're going to win that one probably 3-1. Which will give them the lead over the Shanghai Dragons, who I think are going to go 1-1 and have basically the same map differential that they have right now with their lopsided win versus the Justice and their lopsided loss versus the Shock. Outside shot, the Spark make it over Seoul Dynasty. I think either way, the Chengdu make it. It's going to be if Hangzhou and Seoul, whoever wins that is going to get the 7th seed, I think, in the playoffs. Whoever loses it will be out. So it will be interesting. It will make for a great Sunday, and it's going to be one of those scenes where it's these are both teams that we both really enjoy watching.
Right.
I love the Spark. Father, Son, and the Holy Godspeed. But I've lost a little faith in Seoul because they don't have Fissure, and I love Fissure. Philly needs a miracle to get in. Fine, I'm fine with that. Philly, super overrated. There, I said it.
Well, even if they win, just with their map differential, they have to basically 4-0 the Shock to have a shot.
Which is never gonna happen. You are not gonna who literally have the most dominant stage going. 5-0 plus 20 map differential. So they literally have 4-0'd everyone. You're not gonna be like, hey, we're gonna 4-0 the Shock. Let's do it. No. Not going to will your way to this win. So, yeah. It's going to be, and I brought this up on it's going to be the best stage playoffs we've ever seen from a team skill standpoint. Like, you're going to see the best teams we've seen in Overwatch ever play in the stage playoffs. I don't think it's going to be the best stage playoffs ever because last stage's finals was the best series I've ever seen in Overwatch. And you can't be like, hey, this is going to be the best series finale we're ever going to see. You just can't believe that. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but it's all going to come down to, I think, the Spark versus Dynasty on Sunday.
Yeah, so in regards to my play predictions, Dallas Fuel is definitely going to secure that 6th seed. I am figuring they're going to 4-0 the Mayhem, so they'll finish with a +7 map differential. That Spark Dynasty series is a very interesting one. Spark have looked improved, but I haven't been completely convinced with them as of yet. Like, they've won, but they haven't always been convincing wins, and that's reflected in their map differential, because, like, when they've lost, they have not looked that great. So, looking at the Dynasty, I feel like Dynasty will finish with that 7th seed. So, looking at the Titan series, I do have Titans taking that one 3-1. So that would mean Dynasty will be a +4 in that situation. But I feel like that Spark Dynasty game is going to be close. I'd probably say that's going to be another 3-1. So, Dynasty will still finish with a +6 map differential, which will be enough for the 7th seed. And then for the 8th seed, looking at, how things currently are, you have the Dragons who face Washington Justice and the Shock. I would not be surprised if the Dragons 4-0 the Justice. I'm not super confident that they'll take a map off of the Shock, but the Dragons this stage have been getting slept on quite a bit. So, like, if they're the team to take a map off of Shock, I'm not going to be completely surprised. But I feel like in order for them to secure that 8th spot, they're going to have to pick up a couple of maps off the Shock, and if they don't do that, then they're eliminated. But they definitely have the toughest road to the playoffs outside of Fusion, who basically have 0 chance. So, Chengdu, all they have to do is win, basically. If we're predicting Dynasty and the Dragons to go a 1-1. Because, if the Spark lose based on map differential, they'd probably be anywhere from like -4 to -7. Hunters will probably finish anywhere from, I'd say they'll probably finish like +5 at the end of the day. So you'll have Fuel 6, Dynasty 7th, Hunters 8th, and Fusion, they'll be below that cutoff point. Dragons will be another 4-3 team not to make the playoffs due to map differentials. Same with the Hangzhou Spark. They'll be the Dallas Fuel of Stage 2, because, that happened to the Fuel in Stage 1, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, Fusion are completely out of it. Like, completely out of it. The reason I say that is you could have, if Shanghai versus the Justice goes to, like, 3-2, let's say it goes to map 5, and then they get 4-0'd by the Shock, that would leave them with what? God.
Well, they're +2 right now.
They'd be +2 right now, so that would leave them... Wouldn't that put them negative in the map differential? If they went 3-2 versus and 4-0? It'd put them at -1, wouldn't it? Is my math that
Well,
bad?
you're talking about a win or a loss in the Justice match?
It'd be a win. So they'd be at 4. They'd be at 4-3.
So if it goes to a 5th map and they win 3-2, that would put them at +3, and then if they get 4-0'd,
they'd be at
-1. Yeah.
Which then would be, okay, Fusion just need to win, and they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even a 3-1 for Shanghai would be put them at +4, but then if they get 4, let's say they even get 3-1 versus the Shock, they go down to +2, and all Philadelphia Fusion have to do is win 3-1. And this is assuming the Hunters would lose to Valiant.
Mm-hmm.
So if Hunters lose to Valiant, Shanghai basically cannot. They have to sweep, and they cannot get swept. So I wouldn't completely count out the Fusion. It's not likely for them to do that, but I wouldn't completely count them out. As much as I want them to not be in the playoffs,
right?
But
if I were to throw like a percentage chance of Fusion taking it though, like I
15, I'd say 15%.
I don't know if I'd even go that high. I'd put it probably closer to like 5. It's rough.
I mean, let's be real. You just need the Hunters to lose to the Valiant, which would not be super crazy.
I mean, that's the thing though. Like, you don't know what Valiant are going to show up, because last week they were flip-flop. Like,
they were.
They're going to be really good or really bad.
Like, if Valiant beat the Hunters, I think the Fusion have a 50-50 shot of making it. I truly do. If the Hunters lose, my prediction would probably go towards Fusion making the playoffs over Shanghai.
But the likely scenarios are we either have Fuel, Spark, and Dynasty, or we have Fuel, Dynasty, and Hunters. Just based on our playoff scenarios.
The odds are in that.
Right.
I'm just giving hope to the Fusion fans out. Which I really shouldn't be, because that's not my MO.
Yes, all of the confusion.
Yes. Exactly. So I don't know. It will make for an interesting last week of stage 2.
Absolutely. So just as a reminder, guys, for this week on Thursday and Friday, there are only 3 games on those nights. So the start times are going to be a little bit later. So like they'd normally be on when the second game on those respective days would be going. So that would mean that on Thursday and Friday, the games would be starting at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. So keep that in mind. Don't just, show up early and then be like, what the hell? Why isn't anything on right now? So, we got some interesting matches. Obviously, there's a lot at stake this week. We have the Fusion Shock on Thursday. So that'll be definitive if Shock are going to play the spoiler for the Fusion, which chances are that's going to be the case. We'll see if the Shock can continue their map win streak, which they set the new record for. We have Dynasty versus the Titans, the battle of my 2 dads, with Titans looking to secure the stranglehold on the longest win streak in Overwatch League history, which they're currently tied for. So, that's going to be a fun series. And, of course, the Dynasty Spark game is going to be another close one to keep an eye on. But, for me, the Hunter Valiant game is probably going to be, what I'm more invested in, just because, Valiant have been experimenting a lot. Hunters have not looked as good as I would have hoped in this current stage, so I want to see if the Valiants do have that upset potential, because at the end of the day, if the Valiant pull off an upset or the Spark beat Dynasty, that's when things are really gonna get shaken up in these playoff scenarios. So those are the 2 marquee matches that I'm gonna be paying the closest attention to. But outside of that, Ed, are there any other matches that you're really hyped up for this final week of Stage 2?
I mean, we kind of hit the big one. At the Fusion Shock, Titans Soul, Hunters Valiant, Dynasty Spark. Those are the big matches for me. The rest of them, I hate to say that, but a lot of them just don't matter at this point. If you look at Sunday, Defiant Paris, couldn't care less. Justice Uprising, couldn't care less. There's a lot of squash matches, like Spitfire versus Houston, New York versus Atlanta, Vancouver versus Defiant.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that for the Titans Defiant game. That's going to be played first. So if the Titans are going to break the win streak record, it would be in that one. as opposed to the Dynasty match, which is later in the week.
Mm-hmm. So there's going to be intermittent good games throughout the whole week, but it all comes down to, I think, the last two matches on Sunday as being the best ones to watch. As far as playoffs go. Now, fantasy-wise, there's a crap load of really good games. Whereas, like, you know, if you look at it from a fantasy perspective, Toronto versus Paris is probably a really good matchup because they're both equally crappy. So it's not going to be a blowout one way or the other. So you want to see soon, like, if you look at the pick'ems this week, the closest game to call this week is Paris versus Defiance.
Okay.
And it's basically a 50-50 split at this point. And everything else is like an 80-20% split. It's the closest game from a fantasy perspective and from a pick'em perspective. This is the game that you want to watch if you have no real rooting interest in who makes the playoffs. So it's going to be a good one. You know, Saturday, I'm calling it now. I'm going to call it. They're going to come out on stage, the casters, in Star Wars gear.
Yeah.
May the 4th be with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling it now. They're going to do it because that is just cheesy enough for Puckett to do. If Puckett wears a cowboy hat while racing Reinhardt's, he'll come out as Darth Vader.
Do you feel like they're going to give away free guac on Sunday, too?
I'm okay with this.
For Cinco de Mayo.
Well, they can't give away Corona because it's not a Budweiser.
This is true.
So, I don't know. They could have a lot of fun this weekend with it. And we have to kind of enjoy it while we can, because after this week, we literally have a month off of regular Overwatch. Like, yes, we have the playoffs. Yes, we have the All-Star game. And then 3 weeks off. But if you're a diehard Boston fan, sucks to be you, but your team, you're not going to follow anything after this week. So I think they're going to go all out this week and just have a lot of fun.
Yeah. And, we obviously with that break coming up, probably be planning on a lot more streams, during the kind of like off hours. So definitely looking forward to that. So looking at like some of the other matches though, are there any like particular storylines that have your attention? I know obviously one of the bigger ones outside of the playoff picture is Atlanta Reign and the New York Excelsior, because we did have the upset earlier in the stage when Atlanta did beat New York Excelsior, which snapped the NYXL's regular season win streak. Playoffs don't matter for them because they just lose. But there's always that question of, well, can Atlanta do it again, knowing that New York Excelsior have additional time to prep and aren't playing like back-to-back like they were the last time these two met earlier in the stage?
There is zero chance match. There is no way. But if I'm to look at a non-playoff game that has good storyline for me and intrigue, it's the Guangzhou Charge versus Outlaws. Because this is two teams that have been really bad this stage. Guangzhou Charge more unexpectedly bad than the Outlaws, but I think they both kind of want to go out on a high note. If the Outlaws can go 1-1 in week 5 versus the Charge and Spitfire, that's a big win for them. If the Charge can get a win, they're going to end their stage on a win. They can ride that momentum into the off season, make some adjustments, maybe come back in stage 3. So this is going to be like who can create the biggest momentum going forward. And then, like you said, Atlanta, well, they're not going to win. Toronto Defiant in both their matches is another one I'm looking at. I want to see the progression of I'm 37 and whether they stick him still on Zarya or if they put him in Brig Jail and put Ivy back onto Zarya. Because obviously right now, Ivy is the better Zarya too. But they may want to just give I'm37 more playtime, more experience, because they have more faith in him as an overall DPS player or Zarya player, that he can get to that level. Because, I mean, the joke was he went from Open Division to Contenders to Overwatch League in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just doesn't have the experience that most people have. But the talent is there, obviously. So they may just give him that. I think Toronto versus Vancouver is going to be a big, talent check for I'm37.
Yeah, the Northern Clash.
Yes. It's going to be, the battle of the poutines.
Mm-hmm.
So if they ever did a homestand in Vancouver, do all the players come in riding mooses? Meese? What is the plural of moose?
What are you asking me? I don't know. I've never seen more than one moose together. Like, I haven't had that come up.
Or like, do they get brought in by Mounties? I don't know. You Canadian people explain this to me.
Okay, just to answer this
want to
really
know.
quick. The usual plural of moose is moose.
That's horseshit. That is the most Canadian answer I've ever heard in my life. You cannot pluralize moose as moose.
Oh, okay, so I'm just saying.
Like, hey, bring enough bullets for this moose.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring one bullet, but there's 6. I'd be like, I said there's moose. That's more than one moose. Be like, God dang Canadian language.
Yeah, so they label these as non-standard, and other plurals are rare, but it does say mooses and meese. But it seems like moose is a go-to apparently.
Like, I would say if you said meese, I'd be like, okay, that's moose plural.
As opposed to just if I just said moose, you're gonna be like, oh, you mean just one?
Yeah, exactly. I'd be like, hey, I'm being attacked by a moose.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, okay, you're getting attacked by one moose, not like, hey, I'm being surrounded by 7 deadly moose.
Yeah, but you're also saying a moose. If you just said I'm being attacked by moose, you might not make that assumption at that point.
Why can't they just put S's at the end of these things?
I don't know. I think they just like to confuse people. Is basically what it is.
You gave us Ryan Reynolds. You get a free pass every once in a while. But you also gave us Bryan Adams, so you get negative points.
Yeah.
And also, one thing I completely forgot to bring up on a run, and I want to get my point now, because I couldn't on the show. So Blevins keeps referring to Toronto Defiant as the Kings of the North, like in Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Vancouver is farther north than Toronto. So technically, the Vancouver Titans are the Kings of the North, not Toronto. Toronto, I believe, is actually south of Boston, even. Technically. So, I'm just throwing that out there. Vancouver is the Kings of the North.
I mean, they're also kings of the Overwatch League, so, there's that too.
Valid.
So yeah, that's the other thing too. Like, imagine if Vancouver, the first entire half of the season just goes undefeated, doesn't drop a single game. Like, that would just be crazy. And of course, people just keep, posting that runaway copy pasta how they're not Overwatch League ready, yet they still keep winning. But one way or another, I expect Titans to shatter that win streak record, winning their 17th straight, which would include the playoffs of Stage 1. And, chances are we're going to end up with, 3 undefeated teams in Stage 2, which is going to be another, first-time thing as well.
and 3 undefeated and 2 6-1 teams, one loss team is most likely. That's why it's the best field we're ever going to get. Or it's the worst Overwatch League scheduling we've ever seen.
Right? I feel like it's a little combination of A and B, because like when you look back at Stage 1, Gladiators had a really tough schedule, and they had a little bit of a slow start, and now they're really coming into their own as well, and now that they had a little bit of an easier schedule, you just see them crushing it.
I mean, even look at the Shock. The Shock had a crazy hard schedule in Stage 1.
They did.
And then now they don't have that crazy hard schedule. We see how dominant they are, aka plus 20 map differential through Stage 2, haven't lost a map, which is screwing my fantasy scores, mind you. But, you know, it's one of those things where this is going to get... You're going to have to look at strength of schedule every stage when you look at it. We didn't have to really get into the aspect of it in Season 1 because we had fewer teams and more matches. So everyone was playing everyone all the time.
Right.
You're going to have to pay more attention to it now, and especially in 2020, when we actually have home and road games, you're going to have to pay closer attention to it even more, because you're probably going to have these same teams playing each other 2 weeks in a row. So the strength of schedule is something that is going to play a vital part of this going forward. I have not taken a look at Stage 3 and how the strength of schedule works there. I'll probably do that sometime in the next week. I'll probably do it before the next Heroes Never Die, so maybe we can talk about it then. But yeah, it's this strength of schedule for this stage has been either crazy easy or just middle of the road. I don't think anybody has gotten like a crazy hard schedule this stage.
And not everyone has been able to capitalize on it like Trundu, who are, 3-3 at this point. So another thing that I do want to bring up, which is Houston related, which, is one of our favorite topics on this podcast. So we do know now that Houston basically just outright said, hey, Drake is going to be back in. We're not subbing him out. And, here's the thing, I know with, the Houston fan base, it's a very passionate fan base. Maybe some fans are, down and out at this point. Maybe some have moved on or lost all faith in the team. And, they might be questioning why they haven't been making any moves. But at least they're trying new things, which was, a key thing to see in this last week. Now, Jake is being brought back in. We got to see a little bit of Junkrat from him. Outside of that, he's back in Brigida jail. He has been playing a little bit of Pharah, depending on, whatever map they are playing on. So either Brigida jail or projectile DPS. Now, here's the thing with Houston. They just don't have one issue, but it always makes me kind of just laugh whenever they do make substitutions, and then the fan base just kind of, throws their hands up, well, Spree and Jake are in, how did we lose, But I feel like, I don't know if the drawback from having Jake in from, a leadership perspective, and then knowing how he's honestly not that good at Brigida, I don't know if those balance out. So, obviously you have a more vocal leader whenever Jake is in, but Brigida, regardless of who is in or playing on that team, on that role, has been an issue. So, I don't know if you value just the leadership aspect, or if, having him in doing these other roles is more to their benefit. So, it's an interesting thing to see, because there are players out there that are playing Brigida that exceed over a lot of people. Obviously, the major person to look at is Hoxel from Vancouver Titans, who makes ridiculous plays. But then you also have players on middle-of-the-pack teams that are not good at the role. EQO is probably a prime example. Agilities is not that great at Brigida. He's stat-wise, he does okay, but he's way too over-aggressive, and he gets punished a lot. Zachary has also been getting punished a lot. So, I feel like that role in particular in the Overwatch League is more exposed as opposed to some of the other positions out there. And, a lot of that is going to be put on Jake at this point, not just because he's on a roll, but because he is, the vocal leader on that team. So, I feel like they're kind of like at this point now where they just need to stick with, a core group, and, they just need to address the D.Va situation first and foremost at this point. But with everything going on with their parent company, I don't know if that's in the cards, and whether or not they're going to be buyers come that mid-season break. But, I'm not going to be, rolling my eyes knowing that Drake is going to be playing all the time. I feel like it's good for their fan base. I'm sure the fans will want to see it more. I just don't think that's necessarily going to be, the magic fix that a lot of the fan base is going to hope it would be.
No, it won't be the magic fix, but they need to get behind as a team. And I think Jake, you have, your core three, which is horrible for a team like this, like any team. A team of 6, if you can only count on 3 people being your core starters, that is a first major problem. But you have Jake, Muma, and Rock. And Raucus should not be one of your core 3 because he is just not good. But he is one of your core 3 who's going to be in there. And then you just rotate around the other 3. Like you said, it just doesn't work. You need to stick to a core 6, maybe occasionally sub in one person if you want to do like a 3 DPS map or something like that, like kind of like the Gladiators do when they bring in Surefour. You bring them in for one map, you take them out. Not let's change every map. Let's see what's going to work best. They need this hiring freeze or whatever's going on with the parent company finish before they can change everything, because you can almost kind of tell they want to get rid of half their team, but they can't. Like when Flame came out and said Arhan, we're confident with him on our team and stuff like that. We're moving forward with him, and then he doesn't play a single map this past week. Like, come on. Shut up, Flame. Like, nobody's believing you at this, whatever you say. You are just trying to make up excuses to make your fan base happy. Like, if I was GM of the Outlaws, I would literally get rid of everyone except for Jake and Muma. At least from the starting spot rotation. Like, you go out, you sign Alarm. You replace Raucus with Alarm. Maybe you even bring in Dante. Yes, or Jake. I'm fine with Dante and Jake on the DPS. And Linkser. Those 3, I'm completely fine with that. But you get rid of Spree and Cool Matt. You bring in McGravy. Like, bring in McGravy to be your flex tank. You get rid of Boink and Bazzy as your main support. You bring in another main support. There's plenty of them out there. Maybe you try and go after Elk from Fusion. See if you can work something out there so you can get that main support. And you just kind of, you get the Alarm Elk Fusion University support line with a better tank duo and a solid DPS. But they're not going to be able to do any of that until a parent company takes away the freeze or whatever from hiring anybody.
Yeah, and just to answer a question that I know you would ask in the past about Alarm, he turns 18 in July.
Okay, perfect timing. You pick him up now, play him just towards the tail end of Stage 3 then. because Stage 3 starts in June 6th, I believe it is. So, yeah, he could... You're looking at July 6th and 7th will be the Atlanta homestand. So maybe not quite in time for that, but for Stage 4, guaranteed, he'd be available for Stage 4. Get him while you can. They need to do a lot of work. And I don't know if the organization will allow them to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem with it right now. They're trying to make the best of a bad situation. And I'm not even going to put this on the Taeyong and Flame at this point, because they may be handcuffed by the organization, and they're just trying to make the best out of a crappy situation.
Right.
So let's wait for the team to actually be able to do something before we move.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted by your Discord. That ISamJilla posted a meme about moose. But anyways, that pretty much wraps up our talk for tonight. So let's go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, one of the best ways to do that is to go leave us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice. We're always looking for ways to help improve the show to make for a better listen experience for you. If you would like to find additional Overwatch related content, be sure to check out Overwatch Recall, which is available on our website. And then every Sunday night we release the episodic listings of all the podcast episodes from your Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League podcasts. So to find all the latest, be sure to follow Overwatch Recall on Twitter at OWRecall. Now, if you would like to support us further, consider checking out our Patreon page. We have tiers starting at just $1 a month, and more information can be found at www.patreon.com/OWLnetwork. So you too can join the likes of our master patrons and above, Blazing Bob, Brendan, and Gabby, in helping our network grow. So I want to thank everyone again for your continued support, whether it is showing up to Twitch for our live shows, being one of our Twitch subs, Patreon pledges as well. We appreciate all of the support that you guys give us. But Ed, we have so many ways how our listeners can get a hold of us, so why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can do so.
All right. Well, you can reach us at gmail.com. We are on Twitter and at HND Overwatch. Our website is www.owlnshow.com. We do have a YouTube channel where we do our power rankings. Spider puts out videos, all that fun stuff. And that is youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are all on Discord, so come join us over there at discord.me/OWShow. We are streaming presently live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly, so on Mondays we have the Overwatch League Network that airs at 7 p.m. Pacific. On Tuesdays we have OWL by the Numbers, which is me, Totem, Spider, and Ramses, and that's our fantasy podcast at 6 p.m. Pacific. On Wednesdays we have this show, Heroes Never Die, that airs usually at 5 p.m. Pacific. Usually, I said you were gonna interject.
No, I wasn't. I was just looking at the pickup. But I was like, I was gonna say, well, except for tonight, but
But then we also do host stream available, which will be on Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific with Totem.
Assuming I'm not asleep.
Yes, and Spider is planning on streaming on our channel. Actually, tomorrow night he should be on.
Mm-hmm.
So come check that out.
An educational stream, mind you.
An educational.
Whatever the heck that means. So with that in mind, you gotta learn. Well, I can't say today because it's not today. You gotta learn tomorrow, whatever that is. I don't even know what it is. So I'm curious.
You are gonna watch it and be like, I'm learned.
Mm-hmm.
I went to college.
Yeah.
And I'm learned from Spider. We do have the Patreon, as Totems was talking about, at patreon.com/OWL Network. So come help us out. Any help would do. come get our extra content. You can contact me personally, Edinar, on Twitter at Edinar Overwatch. That's EDANAR Overwatch. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I am over on Twitter. Man, I feel like I have to sneeze so bad right now. But I am on Twitter at Totally_DrunkCTR, and of course, if I'm live on Twitch, it'll be on this channel. Assuming we don't get like stuck in the record loop, and then we have to record over on my other Twitch channel, which only happened one time. Hopefully, never again. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much again for hanging out with us tonight on Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 158. That sounds right. Yeah, that's right. I've been your host, Totally Drunk, joined 99% of the time by my co-host, Edinar, and we hope to see you guys back tomorrow night for our educational stream with Spitter.
I'm educated.
Absolutely. Guys, take care, have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.